let's start with Pat Buchanan. Now, I know we've already done a couple of these from Buchanan, and so when we do a couple of clips from somebody, especially in the same week, it's a higher and higher threshold before we say, all right, let's go ahead and do it on the show. Well, you got to give Buchanan credit. He gets more and more racist every single day, to the point where you say, well, I can't deny, I got to show this to people, because this is just mind-blowing. So he's going to argue with Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, and it's a doozy. Let's start with the first clip. That's clip number 3 in our system. Let's see it.
I would have voted no on Harriet Miers, and I said so the first day she was nominated. I don't think Judge Sotomayor is qualified for the United States Supreme Court. She has not shown any great intellect here or any great depth of knowledge of the Constitution. She's never written anything that I've read in terms of a law review article or a major book or something like that on the law. And I do believe she's an affirmative action appointment by the President of the United States. He eliminated everyone but 4 women, and then he picked the Hispanic. So I think this is an affirmative action appointment, and I would vote no.
And what do you think that affirmative action is for?
Affirmative action is to increase diversity by discriminating against white males. Affirmative action is basically reverse discrimination against white males, and it's as wrong as discrimination against black females and Hispanics and others, and that's why I oppose it. Well,
all right. So a couple of things there. First off, he compared her to Harriet Miers. Harriet Miers was Bush's secretary. Now you say, hey, look, she didn't type out the letters and stuff. But no, she really set, before she became White House counsel, she set the White House schedule. I mean, Bush picked his frickin' secretary for the Supreme Court. Okay? Now, Sotomayor, on the other hand, he says, well, she hasn't written anything I've read. Oh, what? Okay, so all the things she wrote don't count because you didn't read them? Okay, so she has 17 years on the federal bench, Sotomayor, the most experienced judge to come for confirmation hearings in the last 100 years. What more did she have to do? No, she's Hispanic and she's a woman, so in Pat Buchanan's mind, that is a disqualifier. And then, ironically, he talks about how white people are discriminated against. And what drives me crazy about Pat Buchanan is he never recognizes any of the history. I mean, they're going to get into that a little bit here. But for him, it's like, what? We kept people down for all that time? That doesn't mean we have to let them break in. No. We're going to pretend it's a level playing field. Yeah, they're free now. Good luck, right? I mean, look, if he said we needed it in the past, but we don't need it now, that's a different argument. Hey, that's an argument I could agree with, right? But I don't agree with this argument. Now let's go to the second clip here. Where he tells you what he thinks about this country and who should run it.
Why do you think it is that of the 110 Supreme Court justices we've had in this country, 108 of them have been white?
Well, I think white men were 100% of the people that wrote the Constitution, 100% of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, 100% of the people who died at Gettysburg and Vicksburg, probably close to 100% of the people who died at Normandy.
Not true.
This has been a country built basically by white folks in this country who were 90% of the entire nation in 1960 when I was growing up, Rachel, and the other 10% were African Americans who had been discriminated against. That's why.
So, but does that mean that you think that there are 108 of 110 white Supreme Court justices because white people essentially deserve to have 99.5% of those positions? That there's nothing that doesn't reflect any sort of barrier to those positions by people who aren't white. You think that's you think that's just purely on the basis of what white people have deserved to get?
I think a lot of people got up there for a lot of reasons, but my argument would be get the finest mind you can get. Get the real scholars, whether you agree with Bork or Scalia or not. They're tremendous minds, and I think there are other minds. I'm sure the Democratic Party, I'm sure, has women there that can stand up head-to-head with Scalia and make the case, who have got tremendous credentials, knowledge, background, but this one doesn't have that. She was appointed because she's a Latina and Hispanic and a woman.
You see, I literally don't know what more Sotomayor could have done. If she was on the federal bench for 18 years rather than 17 years, she graduated with the highest honor at Princeton. She was tied, though. Someone else got it with her. What, should she have won it alone? She graduated summa cum laude from Princeton. Did he needed to be magna cum laude from Princeton? She went to Yale Law, and then was on the Yale Law Review. And so, I mean, what more did you want from her to be a real scholar? And you claim that there must have been other people who were qualified that are Democrats, maybe even women, wow, that are real scholars. Name one, Pat Buchanan. You're not going to name one because you don't think any of them are ever qualified. You don't think any women or any minorities are ever qualified. Unless they happen to agree with your opinion, then you'd actually consider it. But notice he never even says Clarence Thomas. He always says Alito and Scalia, etc., when he goes to his examples. He says, well, look, the Declaration and the Constitution were written by 100% by white men. Yet that's because the black men were in chains. You see, they were slaves at the time, so they didn't really get a vote. And so you're going to hold that against them. Oh, well, if they were so bright, why didn't they sign the Declaration of Independence? My guess is they would have loved to. I mean, he says it without a hint of irony. But in that clip, he gave you his real insight. He's like, back when I was growing up in the 1960s, the country was 90% white and 10% black, so I guess had some problems. Can't we just go back to that? That's what his real yearning is for. He will never acknowledge that these people, this is a new country, and all these people are in it, and that they're qualified, and that it is possible for a Latina woman to be qualified. He never even considers that as a possibility. It keeps getting worse and worse. Clip number 3 in this series here.
I would say that if you and I agree that what our country needs is to be able to choose from the largest possible pool of talent in order to be able to pick the people who are going to have to function at the highest level so that our country can compete and that our country can do all the hard things we need to do, I would hope that you would see that picking 108 out of 110 white justices of the Supreme Court means that other people aren't actually being appropriately considered. And the reason they have affirmative action is that you recognize that the fact that people were discriminated against for hundreds of years in this country means that you've sort of gamed the system unless you give other people a leg up. You've gamed the system by putting them in the best schools and the best jobs. Hold on, I let you talk for a long time.
She was put into the best schools. She was put into the best schools.
That's right.
She was affirmative action, not because of ability, Rachel. She was put there, she said herself, because of where she came from. She's an Hispanic woman. She's from Puerto Rico. That's why she was passed over other students who applied there with better scores who were denied the right to go to Princeton.
Do you think that she got the grades that she got at Princeton on the basis of affirmative action, too?
I think what they do in the Ivy League, and you know it as well as I do, about half the class graduates cum laude these days.
How'd you do at Georgetown compared to how she did at Princeton?
I'll tell you, I graduated higher in my high school, I will bet, or as high as she did, and I'll certainly say in Georgetown I did, and I'll tell you, I would match my test scores against her, but I'm not qualified for the United States Supreme Court.
You said that right, brother. I will bet that my scores are higher. Really? What? So, do you know your scores or you don't know your scores? Do you know her scores or you don't? You see, you have to give evidence as to why she's not qualified. We have the evidence that she graduated summa cum laude from Princeton. We have the evidence that she was on the Yale Law Review. Okay, these are overwhelming pieces of evidence. And you tell me, I bet you my grades were higher. And yeah, I probably got better grades than Georgetown. Really? You were higher than summa cum laude? No, you weren't. I checked. No, you weren't. You're a liar. Okay? I guess you're insecure that she's smarter than you, and in your little primitive mind, you can't grasp the idea that a Latina woman could be smarter than you. I don't know. She went to a better school than me, but she must have passed over me. Oh, but these days everybody gets good grades. Did she graduate last year? Is that what happened? Is she class of 08? No, she graduated 30 years ago. What do you mean these days? What a fool. And she was put into the best schools. She was put into the best schools. You know what happens? You know how you get into Yale Law School? You graduate summa cum laude from Princeton. That's how you get into Yale Law School. Nobody puts you into Yale Law School. Okay? She earned it. And here's the thing that drives me crazy. He never gives any evidence that she didn't earn any of it. There's overwhelming evidence that she earned it. He never gives any counter evidence except, I bet that I might have gotten better grades, when we know you didn't, right? And he says, his only evidence is, since she is Hispanic and a woman, she could not have possibly been better than the white men who got into Yale Law instead, who got into Princeton instead, who got on the bench instead, and who were nominated, who could have been nominated instead. This is the definition of a racist. Someone who makes decisions based purely on race, based on no evidence whatsoever. Final thing on this. And I swear I will never bring up Buchanan and Sotomayor in the same sentence again, okay? Because I've had enough of this son of a bitch. Okay, the reason why it's so relevant, it's not just some one kook on TV, right? He is perfectly emblematic of the old Republican Party. And unfortunately, there is no new Republican Party. Maybe there will be one day. But as long as the Republican Party continues to be Pat Buchanan's party, which it is today, okay, they got no chance. And they don't represent us, all of us. That includes white people. Because today, they don't think like you did in the 1960s, Pat. They're not racist like you are. White people today, they don't assume that they're better than minorities, or they've grown up in a multicultural environment. I know everybody's different, but in general, we're hell of a lot better than that these days, Pat. And you never caught up. And unfortunately, the Republican Party never caught up. So as long as they stay on that path, they're on their way to extinction. Because that's not the America of today. And they're never going to win that way, nor should they ever win that way. They've got to reform themselves. These old racists running their parties are embarrassing.
Watch the live show at theyoungturks.com.